Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the virtual chapter for June 2025. This is a very special virtual chapter meeting, and I will tell you why that is the case as we go along, but we will be getting there shortly. We're thrilled to have you here with us tonight. I am Michael Watson, one of your hosts, and I'm joined by my lovely co-host and
Hi,
co
I'm Karen Hand.
producer, yeah, Karen Hand from Chicago. Karen, it's summer in Chicago now, isn't it?
It is late spring today. It'll be summer tomorrow. Today's high was 78. Tomorrow it'll be 90. So yes, it is summer tomorrow will be summer in Chicago.
Yeah. See, now
The
this is
weekend will be
this
chilly again.
this is when I miss being home in the Midwest. If it could just be, this season all year round, that would be really nice. So,
But
but in the meantime, I still remember in December that I don't have anything to shovel except bullshit down here in Florida.
you
And
know, in Chicago we don't either anymore. Climate change has really changed things. I'm knocking on wood, but the last three or four and other Midwesterners on the call will attest to that. We've had we had almost no snow this last winter at all. And the winter before, we didn't get much until January, and then had a little bit later in the spring. So climate change is really taking a toll, taking effect.
but even without the snow, it isn't typically swimming weather now, is it?
It isn't typically swimming weather ever in Chicago. Even, tomorrow it'll be 90, but the lake is still going to be cold.
That's
So
right.
yeah, don't swim here. Go someplace else. Go someplace where it's nice and swim there.
Yeah. Well,
Get
yeah,
a
if,
heat
if you're in
pool.
Chicago, go out to eat. That's the thing to do there.
That's exactly right. Now you've got your priorities firmly in
That,
place.
that is the right thing to do in Chicago. All right. Well, so Karen, we have some announcements to make, I think.
Yes,
Uh,
we do.
there's two that I'm aware of, and I'll bet you have a couple other things that you can fit in there as well. But one of them is that on the 22nd of this month, I believe we're on the 22nd. I hope that's true. It's the
I believe
weekend
it.
of the 21st and the 22nd. The Hypnosis Education Association is having an online conference, and Karen and I will be there along with a host of other people, but we're going to do a presentation together about marketing your business.
Ooh.
I market my
You know,
business to everybody I can, actually.
I believe Melanie and Sean are calling it something like old folks marketing or old school marketing, I think.
We are officially the OG. Just think about that. Yeah.
I was going to have a word with Sean about that. I'm just joking. I believe it is old school marketing techniques or something like that. And if that's not it, that's still what I want to talk about because I am not as high tech as Jason Linett, though I so respect that. I love that. I envy that. I am no Dan Candell when it comes to marketing. But I still get the message out. I've still got more clients than I know what to deal with. And I still pass around a clipboard that people have to write on when I'm at conferences to add to the mailing list at a conference. I don't have the iPad technology yet. And that's exactly what I want to talk about. That if you're working on a shoestring budget or something like that, there are plenty of ways to do it without hiring fancy marketers, without hiring all of that kind of stuff. Just start from where you are and get out there and hit it and get it. And I don't have any problem telling my a workshop, I'm still old school. I'm passing around this clipboard. If you want to get on the mailing list, put your name on it, but make sure I can read it because I'm old enough to use a clipboard. So make it clear. And then I pass that thing around and people write real clearly on the clipboard. Just if that's the deal, just own it.
Yeah.
Go with it, right?
Yeah. Well, we are the OG. That's exactly right, by the way. And so the cool thing about that being an OG marketer is when people look at our advertisements, Karen, they say, "Oh, gee," or some of them say, "Oh, gee," but one or the other, and it's always good to get a response.
And some of them say OMG exclamation point and they become our clients. How's that?
I'm not going to do the rest of the letters because now they're really going through my head. There's so many options for people to
That's right.
respond. Yeah. So
That's
anyway,
right.
that is the weekend of the 21st and 22nd.
Yes,
And yeah, check it out if you have an interest in that. We'd love to see you there. HEAhypnosis.com. Is that right? I hope that's
that
correct.
sounds pretty right.
I do think that that's right.
Um,
I'm willing to bet you if you
I think
Google
that's right.
Hypnosis Education Association as well, it will certainly show you how to get to their webpage.
That's right.
And by the way,
Yeah,
I
especially
was a charter member of the HEA like 25 years ago here in Florida. It started out as just this local little Central Florida group and has now become rather international, as a matter of fact. They're going to have Steve G. Jones at this thing, for example, and
yeah, yeah, yeah,
a
yeah.
bunch of heavy hitters. So
Well, Sean and Melanie are go-getters. Sean and Melanie are out there getting it, going and getting it.
they are.
Yeah,
That's why they're not
yeah.
here right now, probably because they are out there going and getting it. And
Or
so
maybe they're drumming. I saw pictures of them this weekend at a drumming circle, so you never know what they might be doing.
there you go. And let's see, the board certified hypnotist program is the weekend of the 28th and the 29th for IACT and IMDHA. And it will be conducted by yours truly. I have my conductor baton, and we'll spend a couple of days together exploring what it is you've experienced in hypnosis, hopefully giving you some new perspectives to add to what you already have and some tips and tricks to own up your skills. And it's always a great program, great people, and get yourself that nice little BCH credential to tag along behind your name if you like collecting letters like that. This is be one of the places to do it. Three of them, mind you. So
Yes.
so that's pretty good. So okay, and so those are the only announcements I have. Do you have any others, Karen?
I No, not really. We've got Hypno Thoughts coming up, of course, and Mid America coming up, Hypnosis World Mid America. Um, and in August, I'm working very closely with a trainer in Canada to do for her students a script writing workshop, a full day script writing workshop. And while I teach, don't frickin' use scripts, it is really how to go about constructing a script on the fly or writing a script if you want to do recorded elements or something like that. But it's how to put together the sermon that you're going to deliver your clients when their eyes are closed and gathering that information while their eyes are wide open. But the whole point I'm of saying that is I'm putting that together in August. We're looking for interest and dates. I don't have a date set yet, but if you have an interest in that, if you drop me an email, I'll put you on the list and get you all the information on it because I think it's going to be a great full day workshop that we're going to do. Karen, Karen, at KarenHand.com. Send me an email if you're interested in that.
Yeah, and Karen, please be sure and post that in the
Oh, I will when we put it all together. We just started talking about it this last weekend, so
Karen, will that be Zoom or physical?
it'll be Zoom. It'll be
I'm
Zoom.
interested.
yeah.
Thank you very much, Carol. Appreciate that.
All right. So, and here we are once again in Gay Pride Month, LGBTQIAMNOP month. And hopefully, if we keep going another 25 years, we'll have everybody in every letter of the alphabet included, in one wonderful, humane association of real people. So
I'm
this
quite
is
impressed that you can look ahead 25 years.
well, and here's something I want to say about that, just to sort of start things off here. It just coincidentally, because it was the beginning of Gay Pride Month, June 12th, 2016 was the night that or the morning, I guess technically, that the Pulse nightclub had the shooting you might be aware of here in Orlando. Gosh, major thing here. And what I remember, and the reason I'm sharing this with you mostly is not just the kind of politics of it, I guess, or whatever that would be, but mostly just to say we were running the virtual chapter. And the very week after that, I mean, it was just a couple of days after that, I think, was the chapter meeting, and I got Michael Elner on the line as our special guest. So some of you know Michael Elner or know of Michael Elner, who created the focusing technique and so many other things that, great mentor and part of the association. So we had Michael, or I had Michael, there just to talk to because it was like somebody that I knew could relate to the gay community because of all of the work that he'd done with AIDS and stuff, and in his history with the group. And it was a lovely and memorable time. But now here's the rest of the story. It was missing one ingredient because 1 year later, at the June 2017 virtual chapter meeting, we were joined by none other than my work wife. I've got it right this time, Karen. I had to go back and look and make sure. So this is Karen Hand's eighth anniversary of being the co-host. It's 8 years. Can you imagine? It is 8 years already. And it was just such a wonderful thing. So Karen, my like I said, my wonderful work life. She is an enthusiastic professional colleague. She is supportive. She is an encouraging and supportive sister, I would say. She is a confidant and a great friend of mine. She is caring, creative practitioner, teacher, author, and somebody who, and I don't know if she thinks about herself this way or recognizes that it's this way, but somebody who understands what it means to give back to the professional community. She is alive amongst us and she radiates the things that we do. So Karen, happy anniversary. We are so glad and I am so fortunate to have you in my life
Thank you, Michael, so much. I would have dressed up if I'd have known that I was going in speaker mode tonight. Thank you, Michael. I appreciate you so much. I have ridden your coattails into a very lovely career, and I always credit you with really taking me a long way in this profession.
Mhm.
So thank you very much for the pat on the
Yeah.
back.
Well, and I'll tell you what, everybody in this room, I'm sure, has experiences of something that they learned from you, something that you taught, sometime that they were at a workshop or something. And isn't it wonderful to know that you were the beginning of a ripple effect that makes a difference. And
It's
so
so cool.
and I'm going to use you now, Karen, to segue from this making a difference to something that I'm really interested in sharing. I'm the guy who puts together the Galaxy of the Stars, for example, and finds the presenters and things to do that. And it's only four presenters, and they've each got like a half a day to do. So it's really kind of select who can do that kind of stuff well on Zoom in the first place. But then finding people and finding a common theme or what to do it about again and again and again. And it's uncanny to me how it all seems to come together anyway when we need it to. And I know a number of you have been at the Galaxy of the Stars online before. So this time, what I'm interested in, and it'll be September that we do the next one, is I'm really interested at looking at ways that hypnotists and neurolinguistic programmers and whoever it is that is, in our community, have found to do their bit of giving back. You know, and so it may be that some of us do that by working with a very special population. For instance, it's always interesting to me to talk about people that I talked to a lady. We had a woman guest on the chapter one time who who just works with people when they're dying, and she does like the end of life hypnosis is her thing.
Mm.
There are people. I'm trying to think. There are special populations. It's funny, by the way. In honor of Gay Pride Month, I want to tell you something else. One of the niche audiences I think that people have identified are gays and lesbians as a niche audience. Because I'm gay, I can get away. I can get away with saying this. We really aren't different from anybody else when it comes to the kind of work it is that we need in the community. We need a sense of being supported. We need to be able to accomplish our directions. We need to figure out how to navigate around hurdles and obstacles, and when you approach it at that level, I think the thing that the gay and lesbian community really wants ultimately, Well, I don't know. Some of them really do like a stage, don't we? But 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 one of the things ultimately I think is we don't really need to be separated out quite so much anymore. Our problems are not so different from anybody else's. I understand, by the way, now I'm an old gay guy, so give me a little credit for this because I suppose that at a much younger age, and I certainly know, things like coming out and how do you get to be yourself in the world were very challenging issues. But the more that I've worked in hypnosis and stuff, what I find out is this is an issue that's shared for everybody. We all have our own coming out to do, where we really start to let who we are, shine and express itself in the world, and then figure out what the hell to do with it. Where am I going to take this? So I personally, I don't necessarily think that that's a niche community anymore, or hopefully, it won't be forever. But there are those particular issues, and there are people, there are people in the hypnosis community I know that have gone into crisis areas like after Hurricane Katrina and things like that, and help folks work with stress and with things like that. That's beautiful. These are great things that I think would be good to talk about how you can do those kinds of, that kind of service, in the world. But gosh, I don't, I, I almost don't know what to say about this other than I did talk to Debbie Lane, by the way, who may be a part of this group. Some of you know Debbie Lane, and she may be in the next Galaxy of the Stars. But she helped to mobilize people after her. Well, there are all kinds of hurricanes in this last year, weren't there? And there was a thing that ran through IACT that said, we want to provide support, and Debbie sort of spearheaded it up to gather together all kinds of people that were interested in participating. But I'll tell you what they found out. The people that had needs that didn't need hypnosis, they needed water. They needed, they needed, and there's that first line of, obviously the first responders are not necessarily going to be folks that come in and do hypnosis with you, but they're going to be the people that come in and bring food. They're going to be the people that come in and bring clothing. They're going to be the people that, you know, hopefully put out the fires and help folks get organized. So I think that brigade, by the way, a word that I'm just loving it, that Karen didn't realize that she had put in my head, but the brigade goes out at the end of the critical event, and after a few days, when things start to get situated, then I think the reality of what's happened to people that have been in this traumatic event, whether it's the fires in California, or whatever it is, kicks in and they begin to start to grapple with their emotional responses to it. And so in situations like that, I don't think we need to go in like an army necessarily, but I think it really would be nice to open our practices up to people, put out some words, particularly now that so many of us are virtual, but to put out a word that, hey, we're available for a limited amount of time, whatever it is, but something to give back. One of the things that I find out is it's so easy to fall in love with the world when what you do is you start behaving like somebody who loves them already. And if you can get yourself into that place, it's just a wonderful thing to do. So I'm advocating service. I'm hoping that there's some people that are, I'm going to put the word out on a couple of the groups as well. But I'm hoping if there's some people that have some particular thing that they do, and it doesn't even have to be pro bono, but that's a nice thing when that's what's called for. But something that you do that helps people in crisis, that's especially useful to people in crisis, and that you would be interested in sharing either with me or with a larger group or in a setting like the virtual chapter or something else. We'd love to talk to you about it. So, and again, my email address is flhypno at outlook.com. I'll be here all day, tip the waitress. And, and I'll put it in the screen. If somebody would like to just get in touch with me and say, hey, I'm working on something like that, please let me know about it. I really want to hear about it. And
And Carmen just said that she would love to do that. So I don't know what you have in mind, Michael. Would it be a good time to get some of those ideas to let Carmen tell what an idea might be?
well,
We
uh,
don't have time. I don't know what you have going, what you want to do for the next 8 minutes.
well, yeah, that's fine. If you'd like to have some talk about it, Carmen, can you open up your microphone? Will you talk to us?
Yes, I can.
Yeah.
Yes, I can.
So what's coming to mind when you responded like that? What are you thinking about?
Well, you just said people with difficulties. So I do a lot of trauma, but the core of what I do is identity. I do the self, as Carl Jung identified the self. So whichever way I approach it, my goal is to get to the self, and I do that with every single session, depending on what the need is.
Mhm.
So in addition to that, I have an innovation that I think you became familiar with it when we did the certification. It's called Fearfulness. I finally finished up the book. It's quite a manual right now. So all of this innovation makes it easy for me to do well because of the work that they do with identity, with the self. Everything else comes easy. So whether it's difficulties, whether it's trauma, whether it's confidence, whether it is whatever it is, for me, it's about the self. And in my world, if a therapeutic intervention hasn't arrived at the self, that intervention is not complete.
Mhm. Yeah,
Thank
well,
you for sharing
it
that.
sounds fascinating. And I guess the question that I'm looking for is because, and you use the word so well, because it's exactly what I'm thinking about. There are times and circumstances when people find themselves in crisis, and some crises are very specific, and require a very specific approach. So, so we want to know who's available for that. So thanks for identifying yourself, and we'll be in touch. You also, like I said, my email address. But also, Russell, you've got your hand up. Is it still up? I think it
Still up.
is. Yeah.
Thank
What
you.
can I do for you?
Oh, just I had two things. I see creating ease. I'm sorry I didn't hear your name. Uh, creating ease.
Carmen.
I'm sorry, we're going to change the name.
Her name is Carmen.
Carmen. Carmen, I'd
Change
love
the name a little bit. Okay, this is the name of my original business, but I'm going to change my name right now. Thank you.
I'd love to talk to you sometime further about your approach with using Carl Jung and finding self. So that we can do that another time. The second, I'm just wondering if I know through the Psychiatric Association, there's a whole disaster kind of relief section and people that look at that kind of thing. I wonder if has this ever been presented at like Hypno Thoughts or other conferences, just talking about what a hypnotist's role in disaster relief could be in terms of helping with resilience or with
It,
other
it's not. It's not. I mean, it's certainly something that I've talked about with people from time to time. But I'm not really aware of any particularly kind of organized group or people in the hypnosis community or any particular person that presents on it even. So that's why I got intrigued with just the thought of it. Quite frankly.
Thanks for bringing it up, and it might be a
Yeah.
nice thing to
And
present.
by the way, I'm also including not just crisis, not just tornadoes and hurricanes and floods and famines, but I think also there are, as I started to say, there are those very special populations. And by the way, and one of them might be, well, it's hard to get to. We had a great presentation not too long ago about working with children in schools,
Right.
for example, and there's a thing like that. Something that I really have become aware of as a secondary issue, and we're gonna get off of this in just a minute anyway. But as a secondary issue is children spend an awful lot of time in front of a screen, as as we all do, as we all do. But actually, it's becoming a serious issue with the fact that all the screen time that young people are engaging in when they're still developing their personality and their socialization skills are changing the way that they relate to the world. And it becomes an excellent screen becomes an excellent opportunity for dissociation, an excellent way to isolate isolate yourself. The community of gamers, for example, is so huge, and yet everybody really is all alone in the long run. It's concerning. And the funny thing is, I realized when I saw someone talking about this on a television program the other day, and when they said something about, well, how many of you, you've been in a restaurant and stuff, and one of your children starts to get unruly, so you hand them a screen.
Mm.
But it's funny, that isn't something that's just come about in the cyber age. Because in 1953, when I started to get unruly, my mother would turn on the television.
And
So
her mother turned on the radio.
so we have been taught this interesting way to tune out by tuning in, to something else. And I'm just concerned about the implications of it. So I think this is another community that would be really interesting in approaching. What do we do about helping people manage screen time? I also have identified 40 some ways that people can be lonely. Uh, lonely because they're in a relationship where they're not received or experienced fully, and so desperately wanting that, or lonely because they are in are in a relationship, or because they but not only that, lonely for lack of community. This is another important thing, the different levels of loneliness that we experience, or loneliness for lack of just relational connections. Like me and my pal Karen here, I think we've all got to know that there's somebody in the world that you can actually talk to out loud, and say what's on your mind and be received and accepted. And the more we isolate, the more we hide behind these two-dimensional, devices, something really important is being lost. So that's just a second soapbox for me to have gotten on tonight already.
And before we leave all the soapboxes, I just want to acknowledge that Carol had her hand up for quite some time. And I just want to make sure that we got to you, Carol, before we moved on to something else.
Let's do that.
Okay. Well, back to the disaster thing, which we left.
Yeah.
I don't know how they found me, but when the volcano in the Hawaiian Islands went, and all those people were dislodged from their homes burned up, and people were dying, they asked me to join a group that would just be available for any of them just to talk.
Mm.
And I was, and so I was there a couple of different times because they set you up on a schedule, and you're with somebody who's like going to facilitate the Zoom, and
Nice.
then maybe 2 or 3 people there to talk.
Nice.
I never talked to anyone, but I was there.
Nice. And I'm reminded now when we're talking about this too, that there's also it's called the Research and Reconciliation Project, I believe that sounds right. It's a name that I get confused, but it's a very formalization of the NLP technique as Steve Andreas developed it for working with people with PTSD, and they've run it through the VA and all kind of things, and had these big programs like that. And again, whether it's PTSD from vets, or whether it's people that have been in some of these horrific, fires and floods and things, that another community to take that kind of work to. So anyway, we are certainly thankful for all of you who do the good work that you do. And
I just want to point out too that Joe Moon put in the chat that Timothy Trujillo in Oklahoma goes to disaster areas and talks about his 5-minute miracle technique for first responders. So what a wonderful thing.
Oh,
did I mangle Timothy's last name? Is it Trujillo?
No, you got it right. It's Trujillo.
Okay. I see it in print. I was reading it when I said it, and it's hard to make that transition as I try to talk. Timothy, we love you. Thank you very much for the work you do. And Joe, thanks for bringing that up.
Yeah. All right. Well, then, Karen.
Yes.
Guess what?
What?
It's 2 minutes after the hour.
Time for us to move along.
I think so.
I want to take us right into the wonderful world of a godmother. In fact, Carrie Hewerdine is such a godmother. That's in her email. It's the Carrie Godmother at gmail.com. Yeah, I got that right at gmail.com. And just full disclosure, I've known Carrie for a number of years and have loved her work for a really long time and had the good fortune to see her at the IACT IMDHA conference in May. And she was on the bill. And as soon as I got the schedule, I said, oh my gosh, I'm definitely going to see that. Because while I've known Carrie, I don't know that we presented on a panel once. That's how we became acquainted with each other. We presented together on a panel, but I've never seen her present as such. And I couldn't wait to go see that and actually see what she had up her sleeve. Little did I know that my hypno husband, Michael, had the very same idea and was sitting in that very same talk. And afterwards, we huddled together and said, oh my gosh, we want to get her on the chapter. Do you think she'll do it? And lo and behold, here we are. And let me tell you just a little bit about Carrie. She's the founder and CEO of True Image Systems, a company devoted to helping empower others in their personal quests. But she's also a court stenographer. You know, the people who can type a million miles an hour and record what she's the human AI because of the way she works on that. She's a human AI with real authentic intelligence. So, Carrie, I got to be honest with you about something right up front. I know that you're a great hypnotist, but what I don't know is how you went from court reporter, stenographer, to hypnotherapy. How did that happen? Tell us that first.
That's a whole story. Um,
Well, this is all about storytelling.
yeah,
Should be right up your alley.
everything in my life felt like it was falling apart except for that steno machine, because that was a place where I went and I felt safe and valuable and competent and confident, and everything else was just going to hell. And so I literally, in desperation one night, and I've been through therapy my whole life. I started off honestly with childhood trauma, of the best kind. And so I'd always been searching for what is wrong with me? Why am I like this? Why am I different than other people? And why can't I sustain a relationship? Why can't I have all the good things that everybody else has? I'm working my ass off. I should be able to. And one night I literally Googled, how the hell can I get rid of this fucking horrible feeling? And up popped somebody's name. And I thought, started following her on YouTube. It wasn't hypnosis, but it was somebody who said something to me that changed my life. And she looked at me and said, Carrie, it's not you, it's your programming. And I thought, well, what the hell is programming? But it felt a relief to feel like, oh, good, it's not me. It's thank God it wasn't something I did. And she went on to say, you didn't sit down as a little kid and decide, how can I F my life up so bad that I'll never be able to have a sustainable relationship or be happy, whatever the hell that is. And I thought, oh my gosh, I gotta find, there's something else here that she's not able to share with me. And so I just kind of went on a personal quest, what's programming, and what's, how did you get messed up as a little kid, not knowing anything more. And I happened to start training with, I had a session with someone, a very simple hypnosis session from somebody who was in school. So I felt like, well, they don't know what they're doing, but how much damage can they do? And it's not one and done. It doesn't solve everything, but oh my God, it felt like a door was opened finally. There was a part of me that was able to contact a different part of me and have that be okay. And I thought, in my compulsive personality, I thought, well, gosh, if it works, then I must know how it works and why it works and how to make it work better. And does it work on everybody? And so I studied and got certified. And then, I don't know, maybe a year or two later, somebody, and I felt was working on myself, just me and myself. And a couple of years later, somebody came to me and said, well, aren't you going to become a clinical hypnotherapist. And I thought, white coat. I thought, well, why would I do that? I have a great job and I'm loving myself more and more every day. So what? I don't have time for that. And then I thought, well, how do you do that? And she said, well, you got to get 450 practicum hours in addition to all the other stuff that you've done. And I thought, no, I'm out. I'm sorry. Love you, but bye. I don't have time for that. I got a busy schedule. And honest to God, once I let it go, as is the universe's way, I literally bolted up out of a dead sleep, middle of the night. And I thought, oh my God, court reporters. First of all, students, there are thousands of them out there and they don't have any money. So I can do this for free. I know their pain. I know their doubts. I know their imposter syndrome. And I know that they're beaten up on themselves just like I did. And I know why they picked this profession. Because gosh, you got to be perfect, but you can't be. But you got to be trying, but you'll never be able to. And we want to sit behind a machine where don't ask me anything. I'm just the fly on the wall writing everybody else's words. It's your problem. If you say the words, I'm going to write them down. What a great fit for a person from a traumatic childhood. And so I kind of put a thing on Facebook, I need 5 volunteers that I'll do in the next month. Full sessions to help you break through your speed and feel better and get out of school. And I got almost 200 people on a wait list. And I thought, oh my God. And I thought, well, maybe they'll have people who are in their family, if they get good results, who, we're going to go on referrals here. But I just never stopped because I could always fit in. And it was so easy for me because it was organic. It felt, I knew their pain. And the thing I had to do was start pulling back and saying, this is their session, Carrie. I know you're getting a lot out of it, but this is for them. And don't assume anything. And I'm falling back on my original training. And then I had gone to through a couple of other schools because that's something I had written down to make sure I didn't forget. But there was things that you don't know what you don't know until there's an echo, a hole, a void, an emptiness, a question that can't be answered. And that wasn't okay for me. So I just kept studying with other people all the way up, including through Michael. And just grabbing and realizing, oh my gosh, the foundation of everything that everybody's doing is kind of the same. And look at that. She does it that way and he does it that way. And there's maybe no wrong way, long as you've got the client's best interest at heart and you're giving them, guiding them through the process to find the answers that they're seeking. Anyway, yeah, so that's how I got into hypnosis.
My goodness, that was a story and a collection of metaphors, and that was a whole bunch of stuff all rolled into one. That's just phenomenal. It took us through the journey. And now she is a board certified hypnotist. She got that from Michael. And an international trainer. She's a hypnotherapy mentor and RTT certified and approved hypnotherapist, an NLP practitioner, a level 2 Reiki practitioner, an integrative life coach, a certified dowsing facilitator and guide, and she's currently finalizing shamanic training for ayahuasca, psilocybin, and MDMA therapeutic sessions. Wow. I mean,
Still seeking.
I
Still
was going to
searching.
say, please don't stop, but please tell us about the benefit. Well, first of all, you proved a point that I'm always trying to make, Carrie, and that is you get good at this by doing this. There is no way to get good at this from a book or through theory. The only way you get good at this is doing it because you really learn from your mistakes. You don't learn from doing the technique perfectly. You learn when the technique goes awry and you have to pull something out of thin air and make it work. That's how you get good at being flexible and being a hypnotist. So thanks for proving that point. You had all of those people to train on and play with and do and get there. And tell us what it is about storytelling and metaphor that is so important in the work that we do.
Oh my gosh. I kind of fell on it accidentally. Well, actually, with my first teacher, I was reprimanded. It was like, don't you go doing that. That is not how I taught you. Here's the script, follow the script. If you follow the script, you won't hurt anybody. And I thought, oh, you can hurt somebody? um, Asking them things and anyway, and going, step by step by step. But she kind of terrified me, and I pulled back and I stopped, and then I realized, wait a minute, I'm working with all of these people, and I'm sharing stories, and they're breaking through, and they're getting results, and they're walking away feeling like I can breathe. And I kind of feel like I've always felt like this, which I realize is really hard to get referrals if, they don't connect it up with the work that you just did. But I have always taken things I've heard, and maybe it's my, part of my people pleasing or codependency childhood, but it's like I'm listening to everybody's things that people are saying all the time, stories, and oh my gosh, that sounds like that sounds like her, and hooking people up. You should talk to so and so because you guys both have this same thing going on. Um, Getting success with one person and then talking to the next person and them saying, well, I don't know if you can hypnotize me. I can't be hypnotized. And being able to look at them and go, oh, I used to think that too. And letting it just go right past. I don't have to convince them or argue with them, and just talking about the results that so-and-so got, or they saw somebody posting something on Facebook. Oh my gosh, Carrie, I passed my test. I'm certified. Thank you so much for working with me. And 10 more people come through the door. So the stories are all kinds of, they can be one-liners. They can just be, kind of like your TikTok thing, or it can be a whole involved story from beginning to end. But I'm always listening during intake or during the session, especially, and in afterwards, being able to connect things up. And what I found is when I'm relaying a story, the person has a tendency to feel safe because we're not talking about them anymore. And then they're sitting back and they're kind of trying something on for size that they never really thought was maybe available to them. And I'm always popping in with my three things that's only ever wrong with anybody: that we think we're not enough, we feel different, so we isolate, or we think there's something available to somebody else, but it's just not available to them. And so in telling that story, they can see how somebody else felt that way too. And by golly, look what happened. They were able to navigate that. How did that happen for them? Like, what was the session like for them? Like, well, we're going to find out. It's different for everybody, but you're going to be the one that tells me where we're going. I'm just the conscious mind in the room here to help you. You could do this by yourself, but we're asking for you to get into a place that's calm and relaxed, and to have that critical part float away for a little while, get out of the way. Unfortunately, that's the part that would tell us, now let's try this, and now let's go here, and what did that mean, and how did that feel, and what do you really want? So that's my job, to be the conscious mind in the room for a few minutes, and to keep it safe, and anyway, so the stories are powerful. And I have a tendency now, even in my non-court reporting student world, that I work with, because of referrals, I'm working with law enforcement, and that's a hard nut to crack. Some judges, but a lot of working court reporters who are out there in the field, they're accomplished at what they're doing, but they're not living a life because they're still trying to find value and validation, identifying with what they're doing as who they are. That's a big one. As because it's a safe place to go. It's a great habit and addiction to have because it pays really, really well. So, but finally having paying clients, who are out there in the field.
Okay. If I can just chime in for a second, because I'll tell you what's starting to come to me, and I hope it's relevant. I remember somewhere back, it has to be like in the 70s or something. There was a therapist. No, it has to be later than the 70s because we had VHS videos. but there was a therapist who put out a book that said something about watch two movies and call me in the morning. And she went through like what was contemporary cinema and which movies would be particularly useful to what, to what kinds
Oh,
of
wow.
people. It was really quite cool. Uh, but
Oh,
I'd rather have somebody tell me a story than watch a movie, if they're a compelling storyteller. So,
yeah, yeah, it's interesting. And I swear I got this from Karen. It was a workshop I was in with her where she said, whenever you hear the phrase once upon a time, your brain just automatically goes into, oh, we're going to hear a story. You're kind of anything that replicates trance takes you into trance. And you're looking for being taken on a journey that's safe, that's interesting, that who knows what it has to do with, may not have anything. It probably doesn't have anything to do with me. Thank goodness we're not talking about me anymore. She's telling me a story. So, and it's funny.
Instant bypass of that critical faculty.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Well, and then thinking way back that, that's inherent in our DNA, storytelling, because it's how we passed on information from generation to generation. And wow, all of a sudden I had this flash of visiting my son up in Reno and him taking me on this hike down this big canyon in the middle of, I thought, where the hell are we? And it's kind of hot out here. And at some point, he let me get just ahead and I turned the bend, and here on this side of this cliff, which was right in front of me, it had to be like 10 feet away. And it must have been like 40 feet by 20 feet high, just petroglyphs, just tons of petroglyphs. And it took my breath away because it in that moment, it was like traveling through time. Or I thought, I got to sit down. And he said, well, the loges are right back here. And I thought, only my kids would know what loges are. But right behind me was this long seat, just an accident of nature. And I could see how people hundreds, thousand years ago, who knows, came to that area to tell their stories, to leave the stories there and to sit and look at them. I mean, it was just spellbinding. Um, and hardly anybody knows about that spot, thank goodness. But what a sacred experience, and for my kid to show me and to let me discover it. It wasn't like, come here, I have to show you. He literally stepped back and let me find the story for me. Wow. But yeah, it's in us. We want to hear the story. I mean, it's not just gossip. It's
Wasn't what you just said a beautiful explanation of how creative hypnosis works?
well, it is.
Stepping out of the way so that the client, so that the person can discover what they need to discover.
Yeah. And to have that moment, that space to be in awe and to not know what it means, but to have it feel like something and to be able to experience it. Yeah. It's powerful, powerful.
So how does one create an effective story or an effective metaphor?
Well, wow, that would be a Michael question probably. A
But I'm
lot of
asking you,
I
so
know a lot of what
he
I
gets
do,
to
I
step out of the
realize
way and let you discover it.
a lot of what I realize I'm doing is I'll call it organic, but it's gathering and sharing, and it's turning around and he thinking of where this person is and try and having a store load of stories because I've listened my whole life to everything that everybody else was saying. I have talked to people about storytelling and had people say, well, I want something structured. I want to know, where do I start and where's the middle and where's the end? And well, here's something I learned from my first teacher. Well, she didn't tell me, but I learned by accident. We would do a session at the end. She would do a 15 or 20 minute, I used to call it riffing, because it sounded like something my musician friends would do. They're just kind of hitting the highlights of the words of the message that the client wants and just kind of swirling around in it. And I thought, how the hell will I ever be able to do that? I don't know where the beginning is and I don't know where the middle is. And I think I know where I could end. So I've got the beginning maybe, and I've got the end maybe. How do I know what goes in the middle? And then I realized it doesn't matter because they're in a place that's non-linear. It's not time driven, and it doesn't matter. And you can say things 3 or 4 times in different ways and turn around and come back and hit it again. And there's no wrong way to do it as long as you stay on, I'll use the word script loosely. Script meaning what are their magic words that their subconscious is really going to hear, not mine. I could describe a house that's got a white picket fence and that's not their house. But so listening to their words, how does your life feel without the problem, without the situation, without the thing that you feel like is holding you back? What would that feel like? What would that look like? And sometimes the best I can get is what it wouldn't look like. I can always get the negative side of I don't want it to be like this and I don't want it to be like that and it wouldn't be like this. And I realized my job is reframing. If it's not that, what's the opposite of that? And to check it out with them in a subtle kind of sneaky way, but then to use that if you're going to do that rifting thing at the end, to kind of solidify, pull everything together in a positive present tense way. So how do you pull a story together? Karen, I listen and I think, damn, that's a good story. I know somebody that would apply to. And like I was going to end with this. I made myself a note, do not forget this story. For people who are trying to get from point A to point B, and there's something in the middle that's just really crappy, that's getting them stuck, that's holding them back. They're stuck in the minutia of how to do the thing in the middle. This is a great story. I mean, the people I work with are students who signed up for court reporting school thinking, I want to be a court reporter, not realizing that there's a 90% dropout rate and that their life between learning the machine and getting certified is just an endless series of failing tests. I mean, you got 20 tests you'll pass. Nobody ever tells you that. That's a positive thing. There's only 20 and then you're going to be done. Reframe. But the schools don't tell them there are hundreds and thousands of tests that you will not pass, because to pass, you got to get a 95%. There is nothing else. It's 95% or you fail. And so eventually their poor little brains say, you might as well just quit because you're really, really good at failing. So part of my job is jumping in there and let's tell a story about it's not failing. What could it be if it's not failing? And it's not about the tests. You didn't sign up for school to get really good at taking tests. You signed up to get out, to be making money. So I got to tell you about this guy. He belonged to this group, and I don't know if he was a musician or a magician or a comedian. I don't know what he was, but he and his friends wanted to raise some money for a great cause, I'm sure. They rented a theater, and then they were going to sell tickets, do a talent show kind of thing. And everybody was doing what they had to do and selling tickets. And he kind of took on some administrative tasks. And so he was trying to get the insurance and he was trying to make sure that everything was lined up so they'd be able to do what they were doing. But his buddies came along and said, you're not selling enough tickets. You're not doing what the rest of us are doing. And we're kind of getting pissed at it. And he said it really hurt him at first. And then he went home and he thought about it and he thought, well, I didn't sign up for this to sell freaking tickets. That's not what I want. What I want is there's a marquee up there with my name on it. I want that marquee to have a big sign across my name that says sold out. Because if I get what I want, we all get what we want. Every seat in the house will be sold. The tickets will be sold. I'm not going to feel bad doing what I know I got to do. I'm just going to do the thing I know I need to do. And then I don't know if it was a story I saw on YouTube. I don't know. I picked stuff up all over the place. But there at the end was a picture of the marquee with the sold out sign on it. And so that's a story that I would share with somebody who's stuck in the middle of the marsh and has lost track of the goal. Why did you start this? What was your end goal? Well, that's what you really want. The rest of it's just a means to an end. And take the value judgment off of it, because it's not about you. It's just getting through. School's just a place to, it's a bridge to get from point A to point B.
I
So
can't
anyway,
tell you how beautiful I think that is, Carrie, because I've heard a lot of people speak on the subject of metaphor and speak on the subject of storytelling and things like that. And the advice often is just read Aesop's fables.
oh,
Learn all of those and use those.
Oh,
And while there's nothing wrong with that by any stretch of the imagination, it's just if that's the starting point, and you go, oh my God, I've got to memorize all of these in order to be successful. That's a really hard way to go about it. And I love this approach. You're going to pick things up every place you go. Use what you know. That's
yeah.
what's going to be authentic coming from you. Use what you know. Use what they tell you. Let them tell you more.
yeah. And I've had clients who tell me stories, before we're getting started, and I'm going, that's really good. I gotta remember that. And I'm a terrible joke teller because I can't ever remember a joke, but I can remember a story. Imagine
You
that.
also had a wonderful point on that score, Carrie, that what your clients bring into you is a story.
Oh yeah. I was gonna say usually, well, we all have stories. I mean, our clients have stories and we have stories, and they're all full of BS, and that could be bullshit, and that could be belief system. It's definitely belief system, and it's probably bullshit, but it's their story. And I remember being in a coaching class, and the teacher put me in the hot spot one night, and she asked me to tell her all about my trauma. Now, I don't know why she thought I was so early in the game. How does she know I have trauma? Carrie, tell us what happened to you. And so I thought, and I kind of was like ruffled up a little bit. And I thought, well, I'm going to give you the whole story. And so I did. I was like, and she wasn't stopping me. So I just kept going, and how bad it was and how it was everybody else's fault. And at some point she stopped. She said, Carrie, um, tell me, who would you be without that story? And I just imploded because, I mean, tears everywhere. Because for the first time in my life, I realized I don't know. I have no idea who I would be without that story. Understanding that it was something bad and horrible, but it was familiar, and it was my reason for succeeding, and it was also my reason for failing. It was my fallback for anything that happened. I had a reason for it, and that took some work. But and I've never had the nerve to do that to anybody else because it just felt so bad, but it was very effective. But that was the story, and there are people who are so afraid of the pain that may come again that they carry the pain with them, so that, and I love the analogy. It was, there's a snake on the trail, it bites you. You chase it to try to determine, why did you bite me? I didn't do anything to you, just to get validation. Or they pick up the snake because now I know where it is. I know where it is, and it's not going to bite me as long as I hang on to it because I've got it right here. I'm thinking, wow, but that's what we do, along with our suitcases full of everybody else's garbage that's been dumped on us that we've taken on because we didn't know how to say no. And we've carried it with us our whole life. And I love being able to, when it's appropriate, to lead somebody down to the train station, to Lost and Found, with that suitcase, because they're not ready to give it back to the person that gave it to them. And that's okay. You just don't need to be carrying it around anymore. So let's leave it at Lost and Found with all the info on it. And when whoever needs it, it'll be there for them because it's not yours. Never was. Oh, those, those are the ones where I come away from the session and I've got to do some work. Um,
Isn't that a beautiful takeaway, though? And you can use that particular concept in a wide variety of things applied to a wide variety of issues.
Yeah. And then one of the other teachers I worked with, he did a similar experiment, and or exercise, and as I sat there, I thought, well, that's the suitcase, but on a grander level. Because he said, if you're standing on the bank of the river and you have all this stuff, if you can imagine all this stuff in your life, this mountain of stuff that you've had to deal with and overcome and live with and excuse and hide and all. So how big would that be? If I had a barge that came down the river, how big of a barge will we need to put all that stuff on? And but to have them visual, and some people will say, "Oh, I can't visualize." Well, can you imagine how big the barge would have to be? You've seen barges. I would have to get a really, really big barge. Well, this is your imagination. You can get as big a one as you like. So, and then to see the relief on their face as the barge just heads on down the river to where garbage goes. Wow. But it's the same thing. And I do exercise sometimes with people who are with some of you may be familiar with this, but like a heavy coat. Have you ever had like a heavy, like a wool coat on, and then you're out in the rain and it gets all wet and just dusty and gross and it smells and it's heavy and it's weighting you down. And then imagine if you are walking along and you're digging in your pockets and there's all these freaking rocks. Some of them are huge. And then you realize this thing is full of pockets and there's rocks everywhere. And it was like, oh, I recognize that rock when I was 3. I recognized that rock. That's my first husband. I recognized that. Oh my God. But I'm afraid to put them down. I don't know why I'm afraid to put them down, but I've had them for so long and they're slowing you down. They're weighting you down. And yet you carry them with you. And to do an exercise where just for a moment, I want you to feel what it feels like to not have that holding you down and weighting you down, and to have them walking along and to tell them, just don't look back. I just want you to take off that coat and let it drop to the ground. Just let it. If we're done, when we're done, if you think you got to go back and get it, I doubt you will, but I'll let you know you can't. This is your life. You can do anything you want, but to take those steps forward without looking back, to breathe and feel how light you are, to feel, oh, I love it. Yeah, change your change your story, change your life. I'm trying to read the chat too. There's some good stuff going on in there.
Well, share Carol's if you want to, because
Oh, I
that's
see.
what she was talking about.
Can somebody read that? Where'd it go? Let's see.
Carol, do you mind if it's shared?
Oh, absolutely not.
Yeah, you can tell it. It's your story.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, I was having enough trouble networking, which I've always had because I'm very introverted. And I know why I became introverted and when it started and how it made me safe and all that stuff. And then one day when I was still working, trying to figure out how to get visible in this new community, part of me said, Carol, you may have to change your story about introversion.
Yeah.
And so I've changed my story because that old story wasn't serving me anymore.
Yeah.
And I went to my first really good networking week about 2 weeks ago, and I went in, no attachment to outcome, just having fun meeting people.
Wow. There are those moments when I go to things I don't want to be at, and I think, well, who would you be if you could playing the part of the confident person entering the room tonight is Carrie? It's like, what would I be wearing? What would I be looking like? How would I? And because knowing I'm going to leave, and they probably won't remember me anyway, and that's cool. I get to practice trying on different aspects of me, um, different parts, as Roy Hundred would say, different parts, and letting that part out. Sorry, I say out of the closet, out for a while, for crying out loud, because some of those parts have never seen the light of day, since we were, what, 3 years old, 4 years old. Yeah, shifting your story, catching your story in the middle of it. I had written down how I was going to start this thing, and I was going to tell you guys I'm really nervous. And that's a story.
Too late.
Reframe it, Carrie. You're safe. These are your colleagues, and it's okay. And we're going into the unknown, but that's where the magic lives. And okay, I'm ready for something wonderful to happen. So that's changing the story. It's catching the story and then changing the story. Yeah. Gosh.
Did you want to do a truth challenge? Is that
Oh, yeah, I was going to show you guys something I do with my clients when I have a chance. Let me grab a piece of paper. I take a blank piece of, I tell them, take a blank piece of paper.
should we do this with you?
Yeah, sure.
Your time?
Be great. You bet.
Okay.
And we're gonna make I'll do it on here and then I'll show you. We're just gonna make like a giant T across the top and all the way down the page, but across this top up here, because I'll have a client who will say something like, I'm working really hard, but I can't get out of school. I'll never get out of school. I love that one. I'll never get out of school. And so I tell them, okay, right on across the top, that's a belief, by the way. It's true. And it's like, well, let's hope it's not, but okay. Right across the top, why I can't get out of school. And then you have them down the left-hand side of the page. I mean, I guess it could be either way, but give them a timed segment of maybe 5 minutes to write down as fast as they can without editing it or changing it or switching anything around or no judgment, just like a flow of consciousness, just channeling all the reasons that you can think of, logical or illogical, real or imagined, why that's true. Why is that true? And if you guys want to take a few minutes, think of the thing that's holding you back, the belief that you've got in your mind. That mine was, I can't make as much money as a hypnotherapist as I could as a court reporter. I'll be honest with you guys, that's still hard because the evidence is always in front of you. And I think, well, what if you didn't believe the evidence and you just said, yeah, I can. I could make twice as much. I frankly know somebody in Louisiana who works on Zoom and makes twice as much as I do as a court reporter. And I thought, well, shit, if she can do it, I could do it. But I haven't let it sink in completely. But that was mine going across the top. And all the reasons why that's true going down the left-hand side of the page. I'm not smart enough. I'm not good enough. Other people are better. I don't deserve it. I haven't suffered long enough. You may use some of those too. Those are my favorites. I'm not smart enough. Yeah. I don't deserve it. Who said that? Who told you that? I haven't suffered enough. That one makes me want to cry. But they believe it.
You must be an artist.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
was going to say they must be Catholic.
Well, that a Catholic artist, maybe. I don't know. So going down the left side, and sometimes the lady that taught me this said, now put it away for a day and then we'll come back to it. But I usually just have them go through it at the same time. It makes more sense. I want them to start with whatever their justification, their evidence on the first line for the reason that this is true. And I want them to challenge it and write down on the other side why that's not true, what the truth actually is. In my case, my first line said, you're not smart enough. Well, I thought, is that true? Is that actually really true? No. And then I kind of got funny about it. Like, well, actually, sometimes I'm too smart for my own good. So I thought humor is powerful. Write that down because it's not true. It's what your brain tells you to hold you back from taking that next step into the unknown where the miracles and the magic lives, because it doesn't know how to protect you over there. It's so happy to just keep you where you are because damn, it worked yesterday. You woke up and you're alive, and that's my job. I did my job. Let's just do it again. Don't look over there to the man behind the curtain. Just stay in yesterday over and over again, like Groundhog Day forever. And I tell them they can take this away as an assignment and go down one by one by one by one. If they find one where they're sure it's true and there's no evidence to the contrary, give me a call. We'll chat about it. Because that might be something they need. Maybe it is true in some way, and we need a little bit more work on that. But usually it's like, damn, those are all the things. For the students I work with, it's like, those are all the things that go through my head when I'm busy trying to take a test and I can't even hear the speakers dictating because my brain is chattering. Yeah. Yeah. And I have whole episodes where I talk to them about getting the chattery talk out of the room before the test, have a practice of talking to it and saying, I love you, but you're not the fastest thing in the room. My subconscious is. That's where all my repetition is downloaded. And if I just let him or her write on that machine, they can write faster than I can think. So we got to let her do that. We got to get out of the room during 5 minutes for the test. And then we'll come back. And I love that part because I hear it all the time too. You can't write it like that. That's not the proper way to write it, although it is. I mean, there is no bad way to write it if you can read it back. But when you come back, I need you, chattery, conscious, problem-solving brain. Now I got time to sit and listen to you say, proofread that one more time. That comma doesn't go there. That wasn't what they said. And to listen to it, to give it a job that it's good at, so it's not interrupting the other parts of you that actually could be getting you the progress. So, yeah. Anybody got any questions? Anybody got any stories you can share with us?
I'll tell you something I might throw in here is that it occurs to me. I mean, I was talking earlier about watch movies, for example, and the stories in films. We don't choose a film to watch unless there's somebody in it that we can relate to. So there's always a hook, and my sense is that we get to take people on a vicarious journey uh,
Yeah,
within a character in a story that in fact it does let them know, doesn't it, that this is kind of about you. There's certain movies that I think of that just absolutely touched me deeply.
yeah,
That some other people didn't have any response to at all. It's like what, but that's the interesting thing. When I was a child, one of the first stories that I remember was The Ugly Duckling.
oh,
Perfect metaphor, by the way, for somebody that has a sense of not quite being right or like the others and put down or whatever, whatever. And then they finally emerge to be, the great swan or something. But it
oh,
occurs to me, I had a course in folklore and fairy tale when I was an undergraduate. And
ooh,
and we talked about the background and where the stories came from. But all of the stories that we tell our children and the books that we buy for our children and the people are writing for our children are written with the intention of having a child relate to it and learn from the experience of a character in the story.
yeah,
So that's also true of the Count of Monte Cristo. You know,
ooh,
it's not just children. It's like all of the stories are stories and are remembered and are relevant to us because we can relate to them in some way. So if you can
yeah,
sort of find those tags and then figure out how to move that story in the direction that will be most useful to your client and have them sort of create it with you,
yeah.
that's
Oh
something
my
wonderful
God.
going
Gosh. And it's funny because even just as we're sitting here, I've got all these little stories that are like, tell me, tell me. 'Cause it's like there is a lot. I was thinking about, storytelling is it's building rapport, it's educating, it's validating, it's demystifying the mystical, and it's expanding the realm of what's possible. And what does that do for our clients? It creates a new neural pathway. If they think a thought they've never thought, it's not up there. Otherwise, they'd be operating on that automatically, but it's boom, it's there. And then somebody told me, well, those disappear. If you don't use it, you lose it within a certain short period of time. And so all of a sudden I thought of, gosh, it's like, you give them a story, they get it, you see their light bulb behind their eyeballs going off. And I realized it's like dropping a pin on your Google map. It's like, that's where that neural pathway is, right there, that new one. And to tell them, if you can think a bunch of that same thing, if you can keep reminding yourself the change that you want in the next couple of days, we're dropping more and more and more and more pins so that when something even remotely seems like that, a new pen will get dropped in there. And what's happening is you're building a whole network that's eventually going to be more powerful than the old one, where we're not thinking about that anymore. And it's going to be able to float away. But I love that, the GPS thing, because you can tell, clients all day long, practice the new habit, practice the change, step into it, become that person. But well, good luck with actually having them do that, because we're not following them home. And then I don't know, do any of you, I don't really anymore, but do any of you guys use recordings after sessions or anything like that?
Gosh.
I had early on, I did, and I had really great success with people who would actually listen to them. And I had one couple, all of a sudden somebody pops up and says, Carrie, God, it was amazing. We had a session on Tuesday, and on Friday, boom, I passed that test. It was phenomenal. I felt like, whose fingers are these? And then next week it was like it started going away. And I thought, oh God, it's not going away. The old thought patterns are jumping back in. The old habit that's more powerful than the new habit. But how do you explain that to them? So what I decided after I heard that story a couple of times was, well, I'm going to head this off before it has a chance. Here's a recording. I want you to listen to it for 21 days. It takes 21 days to make a habit, change your thought pattern. You don't even have to be awake. Just hit play, go to sleep. It'll be fine. The part of you that needs to hear it doesn't sleep anyway. It's the ultimate in multitasking. Just listen to it. Now, I want to warn you, because on day, I don't know, 5 or 6 or 7, you may hear a message or a voice or feel a nudge that says something like this. Oh, you don't have to listen to that. Did you think that was going to change your life? Come on, you've been really diligent. You did it for a couple of days. Just take a rest. Just go to sleep. Don't listen to the recording. So when you hear that voice, I want you to celebrate. And they look at me like, what the hell? I want you to celebrate, because that's our clue that this is working. That part of you that wants to keep you where you were doesn't want you listening to that tape, because it realizes change is coming. And so feel brave, step up and say, oh, I get it. You're the part that's been trying to protect me. And this is going to be so cool. The change is going to be wonderful, and really build it up and listen to the damn recording anyway. Because think about it. If that voice was really not, it really believed that the message wasn't going to get through, that the recording wasn't going to make a difference, then it would be saying, oh God, you're going to listen to that thing again? Well, go ahead. It's not going to make a bit of difference. Knock yourself out. But that's not the message you hear. Get behind me, Satan. I love it. Anyway, so I always prep them ahead of time, and I'm thinking, I didn't know what I was doing at the time. Now looking back, going, oh, look at all the suggestions in there. Look at all the setup in there. Look at the expectation, and that a change is happening. I don't care if you think it's wearing off. Listen to the tape again. Anyway, so I was going to say,
Reframe. That's what
yeah,
as you're dancing with the client, every single client or every single person that you want to persuade or
yeah.
anyone you communicate with, it's really reframe.
Well, you'll love that. Here's another story. Because when I was in a study group that I created, that we were told by my teacher, don't you ever break off from what we're doing. Of course, it's like, don't tell me what not to do. I will take pictures while I'm doing it. So I created a study group, and we were working on reframing that week. And somebody turned around and said, I don't know what the sample was, but Carrie said, oh my God, you guys, this is so hard. And they all looked at me like, for God's sake, with Carrie, let's reframe that. You're just not real good at this yet because you haven't practiced it enough. Anything. So by the end of that, I was called the Queen of Reframe, because it was like they were throwing some really, really nasty stuff at me. Try this one. It's like, oh my, I can do it. I can switch this around to something positive. Anyway, it was a hoot. God, you guys, this is so hard. Looking back, I can't help but laugh. Like, good God, Carrie.
But that is using hypnosis at its finest.
Yeah,
They say hypnosis is all self-hypnosis
it
because it
is.
is. You have to accept the suggestion.
Yeah,
Well, you're giving yourself that suggestion and accepting it or reframing it.
reframing it. Yeah, I didn't get to see Michael's thing on reframing that was this last time. Didn't you do a workshop on reframing? I wanted to see that so bad. Yeah, because you can never reframe enough. I mean, let me see if I got that right. Or what you really want is, and just, checking in with them. I love it.
You know,
Uh,
if I might, one of the things about reframing in the long run is that what we are up to, what we're doing with our clients, is to have them come into our office having one experience of whatever the topic is in their life, and to have them somehow or another come to a new perspective or a new understanding or a new way of looking at or thinking about that thing. We're not changing what's happening in the world. What we're changing is we're facilitating a change in a person's perspective or understanding of that thing.
yeah,
So, if you're not gonna tell people stories, well, what are you going to tell them?
yeah, yeah. Oh my
Because
gosh.
because we are a servo mechanism, I think, to facilitate that process. They come to see us because you got to do it some way. There are other ways that they can get their stories. Some people get them at church. Some people get them on the television. Some people, have psychedelic experiences or whatever it is. But there's a place where they tap into that world that's other than the one that they've been living in and the way that they've been holding it.
Yeah, and you drop a pin
Yeah,
on the map.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
Oh
cool
my
for us.
gosh. Yeah. Wow. Think a thought you've never thought before. It might take you someplace magical. Um, yeah. A lot of the people I work with are they will tell you they have their anxiety. It's theirs and nobody's taking it away from them. And I love to tell them this. I don't know, you guys are all old enough to know Paul McCartney. The group I work with doesn't, so sometimes I got to tweak it around. But
He was in a band before Wings.
he was. I mean, it was eons ago. He was amazing. He said, I saw him once in an interview, and he said before every single concert, he gets really nervous. He gets anxious. He said it just rises up in my body. And that's my signal that I'm about to do something really important. And I want to go out there and I want to do it the best I can. And I love that part of me that takes it as seriously as I do. And I thought, wow, there's some reframing.
Nice.
Oh, yeah.
Lovely, lovely.
Cool guy. Thank you guys so much. This was fun.
Are there any questions?
Oh, I did put over in the chat the handout that I used in Orlando. And at the end of it, it's got the Power of Myth by Joseph Campbell, and it's got some ideas for using storytelling in therapeutic settings. So knock yourself out.
Cool.
Carol got very excited about that.
Yeah.
Looks like
And do we have your email address or something readily available?
I put it in the chat, but Carrie, give it to us.
Yeah,
Recording, you won't be able to see the chat.
oh yeah, no. Oh, it's the carriegodmother@gmail.com. And that was one of my one of my clients. I was at a state test, hypnotizing a group of students before they went in. We had 12 out of 14 pass, and before that it had been a 6% pass rate, so we felt pretty good about it. But I'm walking through the Marriott, and across the hall I hear, "It's Saint Carrie," and I thought, okay, I can't go that far. And then somebody said, "Carrie Godmother," and I thought I could do that. So that's how that moniker came about.
Yeah.
And it was hard. It was like, no, I can't. Yeah, you can. Just push into it.
Do you have any teachings or workshops coming up, Carrie?
I don't in the near future. I was kind of thinking Orlando and then summer, because my daughter has been staying with me for quite a while and she's gone visiting friends on the West Coast for the summer. So I thought this is my summer to not do anything. But I am setting up a hypnosis 101 basic certification training, but with a twist in there, a whole lot of extra hours because I'm offering it to court reporting students and court reporters, because I don't think anything will open up their life like that will. And if it works and you know how it works and you know how to make it work better, and it's just gonna be that door that opens for them. That aha moment, like, oh my God, this was a thing and I lived my whole life and didn't know it. Oh my
I
God.
appreciate you putting your IAC presentation in the chat room. I'm curious, for those who will watch the recording or listen to the recording, can they get a hold of that? Is there someplace they can go to get a hold of that?
It was one of the links in the IAC thing, but they could just email me at
Email
yeah,
the
the
Carrie Godmother, and that's
Godmother, yeah.
Carrie, the Carrie Godmother at gmail.com. And she
Yeah.
promises she'll send you that
Yeah.
presentation.
Yeah.
And by the way, anyone here who attended the IACT conference I don't know, do, I think you have to sign up for them, don't you, to get the recordings? Is that right? I know that recordings of the entire conference are available, and they're audio recordings, most of them.
Yeah.
But they'll also be coming out on a flash drive. So if you're part of IACT and BHA, you're going to see something in your mailbox about this. So watch for it. And I even believe that it's possible, I'm not sure, but to get one particular lecture or another. I'm not sure about that. What I do know is here's where I am in the process. When all of the audio recordings are edited and put together, they are sent to me, and then I send them off to a company that puts them on a flash drive. But I just do however many they tell me to do, and I'm not sure if everybody gets them or if you have to sign up for them.
Wow.
But
There was
check it out.
there were some amazing presentations
Yeah,
this
yeah,
time.
yeah. There were. It's quite a good deal. So, well, Saint Carrie, Saint Carrie Godmother, it has been lovely having you here with us tonight.
Could wave my magic wand and give you one wish, what would it be?
It would be to have another half hour to continue this with you.
That would
So,
be
so
Thank
anyway,
you for the wonderful stories, the wonderful examples of how to
Thank you.
use it. Yeah,
Get out there and make more stories and then come back and share them with the rest of us.
there you go.
and with
Thanks.
that in mind, ladies and gentlemen, it is time for us to do as we habitually do, to invite you all to turn on your microphones so that in one great sound wave of love and affection, we can wish Carrie well and give her our blessing and say goodnight to all of y'all. So good night,
Thank
everyone.
you, Carrie, very much.
Thank you.
Thank
Very
you.
good.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Carrie.
I think we're going to be talking about sports hypnosis this
Ooh,
time next month. So tune in for more details.
oh, good. Performance stuff. Yay. Okay.
All right, everybody. So
Toodle.
we'll
Thank
see
you,
you next
guys.
month. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Carrie.
Bye.